Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Fireside Chat, the Millennial Movement. Now, you may be wondering, why did I choose that topic? Well, number one, I realized that today that our workforce is so diverse, and many older adults will say things like, those millennials, they're this and they're that. And I have to admit, as a parent of several millennials, I do think that they are different, but not different in a bad way. For example, about a year ago, our youngest daughter told us, I'm going to move to Houston. We're like, Houston? Who do you know in Houston? She's like, well, I went there one time when I was in college, and I think that it's a place that I want to live. It has a huge healthcare system population, and so she said, I'm going to go look for an apartment there in 2 weeks. And so I told my husband, oh, 2 weeks? We're going to. So we went, and so we're looking at these apartments, and one of the leasing agents says to her, so when are you thinking about moving? And she said, 2 weeks. My husband and I looked at each other and we couldn't say anything because we were in shock, right? We thought she was just going to come and look. We didn't think that she was going to come and look and actually make the decision to move. Now, at 22, is that something that I would have personally done? I can't say because, it was a different time. But she left having saved up money for a year's worth of rent, and she moved. A year later, it's now a year later, she's graduated from college with her bachelor's degree in healthcare administration, still trying to figure out why she picked that major. but she's doing great. She may be a little lonely from being there by, pretty much by herself. But luckily, my husband and I have friends from all over our lifespan in where she's located. And so we got someone that's always, looking out for her. So when I think about myself, obviously, even though I look like a millennial, I'm not a millennial. I am in the generation, uh, you know, the Barack Obama generation. And I think about how today, from a workplace perspective, from a social perspective, I have a lot of interactions with women, men that are 20, 30 years younger than me. And sometimes I actually forget that, they are a certain age until they make a statement about something that they have done, like during the pandemic. While most of us were like shut down, some of the millennials were like living their best life, getting on the $5 flights. And so there's lots of studies out there today that kind of breaks up the difference between the generations. I actually looked at about 10 different charts. You can just Google like generational chart. And so, they talk about how, I'll use my population, my generation as example. They talk about how we grew up with computers, right? When we showed our kids our first cell phone, the big brick cell phone, they were like, wow, that's, huge. But then fast forward to today, we have these small cell phones. So technology, the world has evolved. And today, as we're dealing with this great resignation, where organizations are looking for employees, there's a large contingent of millennials that are just like, you know what? I'm going to work, but it's definitely going to be on their terms. And you know what? That's bold, but that's the one thing that I love about the millennials is that they are bold and they are ready to take the world by storm. So for tonight's topic, I invited a young lady who I have just grown so fond of. I said, in another life, she definitely is my daughter. She is very professional. She is well spoken. She's driven. She's courageous. And I've known her for about the past 5 years, and it has been such an amazing journey just getting to know her. So I'm going to bring to the screen my special guest for tonight, Mrs. Sharnice J. Martin. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Martin. Number one, she is a dynamic health information management professional with extensive experience in coding, revenue cycle integrity, and education. She has over 10 years of experience in the field. And 2 days ago, I said, "Are you 30?" She's like, "No, I'm 33." And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just getting older right before my eyes. But she is very passionate about the industry as well as mentoring new professionals. So she earned her bachelor's degree in health information management or health information administration, which we like to call HIM. And some folks would say today it's just health information. But she earned that degree from Chicago State University. She also has a MBA, Master's of Business Administration, with an emphasis in healthcare administration from the Capella University. I actually attended there as well. She is an active member and volunteer on all levels of our professional organization, which is the American Health Information Management Association. So she's active here in the Chicagoland area. She is also active in our state associations, which is Illinois Health Information Management. So she currently she got a big time job. She is working at the American Medical Association as a healthcare analyst on the CPT, Education, and Information Services team. She's also a visiting professor at a university. Throughout her career, she has taken pride in collaborating effectively as a millennial. Let me say that again. Collaborating effectively as a millennial with a multi generational workforce. Sharnice, thank you so much for joining me tonight. How are you doing?
Good. How you doing, Dr. Campbell? Thank you so much for having me on your fireside chat. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here as well. So, listen, let's dig right in. I got three areas that I really want to explore with you tonight. And
Okay.
the first one is I really want to know, why did you choose health information management? Like, no one even knows what that is. So, what actually made you choose that program?
Well, when people ask me how I got into HIM, I always tell them that HIM found me. So, um, long story short, I started off as many in the HIM profession. I started off as a nursing major, and that wasn't working out as planned for me. And so, um, and I actually started out at a PWI, and if people don't know what that is, that's a predominantly white institution in Michigan. And I ended up coming home. I ended up transferring home, and I came to Chicago State, and I had to take a health professions course. And in that course, they talked about all the wide variety of health professions, and they had some of the directors from the different programs at Chicago State to come and speak to us and talk about their respective programs and what it all entails, and the careers that you can get from getting your degree in those areas. And so at the time, the director of the HIA program at Chicago State, she came and spoke to the program, and I had never heard of this profession before, and she just made it sound really cool, and it related to me. I could relate to it because I still wanted to work in healthcare, but I realized that I wanted to be more behind the scenes and not necessarily a hands-on clinician. And so I immediately found out what requirements I needed to complete in order to be a part of that program. And I worked really hard because I had a couple credits that I had to finish in a short amount of time. So I took some summer classes really quick, and I was able to get into the program, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. You know what? I personally think, and it's no secret, health information management is dominated by, they used to say, middle aged Caucasian women. I can tell you, growing up in the Chicago public school system, I didn't have a clue what health information management was.
Mhm.
And I kind of fell into it as well. You know, I started off as a medical assistant and kind of transitioned into healthcare administration, which is different than health information management, and then
Right.
kind of found my way over to this industry. But I have to say, the last 30 years, it's been good to me, it's been good to my family. And I hope to, retire in the next probably 30 years. I told my husband I wasn't going to ever retire because I enjoy what I do. And when you enjoy what you do, you don't feel like you're working, right? All
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
So, what made you get your master's?
So, that's a good question. I don't know. I always knew I wanted to advance my education, and one of my cousins, who I really look up to, uh, I just always thought she was really cool. Like she has her MBA as well, and so that's what made me go into getting my MBA. And I actually had an opportunity to go and visit her. she lived in New York, in Brooklyn at the time, and she was this big fancy administrator at the hospital out there. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, this is what I want to do. And so, although I had already got my degree in HIM, I still wanted to have that next level, of education, behind my name. And I just wanted to be able to have more opportunities, be able to have more opportunities. I didn't want to limit myself, being able to get my bachelor's degree was good. And it was hard. And it's really funny because I was able to see your previous fireside chat, and how she talked about, going from a GED to a PhD and how long it took her, but it didn't matter. She got it finished. It took me a while to get my bachelor's. It took me about 6 years to get my bachelor's. But that didn't matter. I still wanted to advance to get my master's. And so I just went on and did it. I knew I wanted opportunities to teach as well. And I knew that a lot of times you needed a master's. So I wanted to go on and get that. And that's what made me get my master's degree.
That is awesome. And you know what? I think one thing that you said that I think is so important is that even though, the college catalog says it's a 4-year degree, there is nothing that says that you can't take 5 years or 6 years. One of the
Exactly.
reasons that I wanted to bring this topic, to Facebook Live is that I think that a lot of people are so set in their old ways that they just are very narrow minded in their thought process. So what if it takes, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years? It doesn't matter. Everybody's
Yes.
journey in life is different.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by a single mom, right? Some people were raised
Mm-hmm.
in two-parent household. Both of my parents did not have college degrees, right? But that did
Yeah.
not prevent me from doing what I've been able to accomplish today. And if you know me, I'm not done yet. I
Right.
stay ready so I don't have to get ready.
Have to get
So
ready.
let's talk about family because you're 33, and as the old folks would say, you ain't had no baby yet. What's the deal with that?
I think being a millennial, I think that we have different priorities than previous generations. And not saying that that's good or bad. It's no knock to any of the generations. It's just the times that we're living in. We have bigger, maybe financial goals than they might have had in the past. We have bigger aspirations career wise. And so for me, I just haven't I haven't found it to be the right time to devote myself in terms of having a family or children or anything like that. But I do want it. I want it eventually. I'm not writing it off. But previous generations, it was a necessity. Like you said, a lot of our grandparents or our parents before us, they didn't have degrees, they didn't have the formal education. So women, they had to have a husband that had maybe a good blue collar job, that had benefits to take care of their family. So but times are different. We're living in different times. And so I am 33, but I still have an opportunity to have a family in the near future. So I'm not writing it off. I'm looking forward to it, but just not today.
That's awesome. And you know what? Honestly, I don't think it's anything wrong with it. I tell our youngest daughter all the time, live your life, right?
Yeah.
Because she's able to travel. And when you got a family, you
Same.
got other folks
Yes,
that you got to consider before you start making all of
exactly.
those plans. And so there are some limitations, right? So, you know
Exactly.
what? Don't
Yeah,
let
same. I
anybody
love to
tell
travel
you.
too. As you mentioned, I was one of those millennials taking advantage of those $5 flights during the pandemic. So, and when you have children, or if you have, other commitments, family commitments, you cannot move how you want to move all the time. So I still want to move how I want to move, and I don't want to be obligated to certain things right now. But that time will come.
Well, I know you're going to be a great mother in the future. So, my last question for you is, I when we were chatting prior to today, I said Whitney Houston said, "I believe the children are our future." And when
Right.
we think about what's going on in Chicago today with all of the crime. And it's not just Chicago, because that just drives me crazy, because some people think Chicago is written with
Right.
crime. Yes, Chicago, there's a lot of crime, but we are not alone. But
Right.
right now, organizations are struggling to find workers. We have the great resignation, the interest rates going up. The economy
Yeah.
is high. Today I filled up my truck. It was $100. I just said I was thankful that I could pay the $100 for the gas and kept on moving.
Yes.
But what do you
Yes.
think the future holds for not only your generation but just in general?
I feel like the sky is the limit for our generation. You know, just we talked briefly before this fireside chat, and just because we have our degrees in a certain area, that doesn't mean that we're limited to staying in that particular space. For the rest of our lives. I have looked into other areas outside of HIM. I will always maintain my credentials within, the profession, but there are other spaces, like real estate, marketing. It's so many things that we can do that technology provides us. And the one thing about being a millennial is we are about our coins, right? Like we are about getting our bag, as we say. We getting our bag. So I have even looked into like other streams of income, like being a virtual assistant. Just it's so many things that we can do. I know people that professionals that drive for ride share companies, and it's just so many areas that we can go into. So, but I feel like in terms of being a professional and being a millennial within a multi-generational workforce, it's imperative that leaders find a way to equip their millennials and all staff, with whatever it is that their need, and prioritize those needs. Millennials might have different needs than those in Generation X or in the baby boomer generation. We are more tech savvy, and we want to be equipped with the right technology in order to do our jobs effectively, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel every time we do something. So it's limitless. The sky is the limit as far as the future, and especially healthcare. It's constantly evolving. Healthcare is constantly evolving. So I feel like I'm adaptable. I pride myself on being an adaptable person, and I feel like that is one trait that a lot of people have to have in order to succeed, no matter what area you work in.
I love it. So I kind of feel like I am kind of a millennial because I'm definitely techie. I am all about technology. I'm
Hmm.
definitely about getting my coins. I believe, for
Yes.
those of you that don't know what that term means, why you got to keep young folks around, it's about multiple streams of income. And I think
Yes.
that the future, you're going to see more folks that will say, okay, I have my full time job, but I'm also going to do XYZ, right? Because that's
Right.
how you, number one, can provide for your legacy. What are you going to leave behind when you do have those children? You don't want them to
Absolutely.
struggle like, maybe my parents had. So,
Hmm.
well, let me just tell you, there was a couple of folks in the chat. They said hi, of course. And then there was one person, Sherry, who said she would not trade health information management, the profession, for anything. And I mean, I agree. It has so many different areas that we can work in. We can
Yeah.
work in traditional settings, non traditional settings. You can teach, you can work for the government, you can work in research. I mean, it's just so many different
Absolutely.
areas. And I want to just leave tonight by saying to everyone, no matter what age you are, the world is open to you. All you got to do is reach up and grab it. It may not be easy.
Absolutely.
It may take you 10 years to do something that it may take someone else 5 years to
But
do.
don't give up. Don't give up.
Don't give up. Well, Sharnice, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And
Thank
as
you for having
always,
me.
It's a pleasure seeing you, and thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.